the League of Women Voters. I thought the best way to start tonight's presentation would be to just read you the mission statement of the National League of Women Voters. So here goes. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of public policy issues, and influence public policy through education and advocacy. There are a few words I really want you to remember there. Education and advocacy, those are two of our main goals. Also works, because we work really hard. And the last word, nonpartisan. The League supports no party, no candidate. And that applies for local, state, and national leagues. So as I thought tonight about how to present the League to you, I thought that I would do it in the form of an invitation. You know, invitations have the who, what, where, time, etc. So if you can read between the lines a little bit, this is an invitational for the League of Women Voters. So I'm going to begin with the who. Who are we? Well, right now we're about 300,000 strong across the country. There are 700 local and state leagues. Indiana has 22, maybe 23, because I think Henry County just came on board. We're growing. The state league is growing. And we're just like you. We care about our world. We want to leave it better than how we found it. You guys do the good work of working with children and all the time and effort and money you provide to Riley Hospital Foundation. It's so worthwhile. And our work just happens to be the work for democracy. We work to promote it, to strengthen it, to foster it. We even do this work around the world because we are observers in other countries with struggling or new democracies. We do that under the auspices of the United Nations. So I'm very proud of that as well. Who? That's who we are. So what? What do we stand for? I'd like to share this with you, which makes me real proud also. The League's first major national legislative success was the passage of the 1921 Shepherd-Towner Act, providing federal aid for maternal and child care problems. So remember, the 19th Amendment, which is what gave women the right to vote, was passed in 1920. So just a year later, women, being a part of the political process, were able to pass legislation that helped those in need, particularly mothers and children. We've also been behind the fight for Social Security, for Voting Rights Act, and for fairness in elections. We've supported campaign finance reform. We're also huge supporters of the environment. We want to leave our planet as good for my granddaughters and your granddaughters and grandsons as we can. And those are some of the those are some of the national priorities. And the state shares a lot of those priorities too. However, states are free to act on the issues that are important to them, as are local leagues like the Hancock League. So the state of Indiana is going to be focusing this year, as it did last year, on redistricting. You may have heard about that. It's a nice term for the word gerrymandering. Hancock County, you may or may not know, if you've been awake, you probably know that they're building a new jail in Hancock County. And so we hosted a forum for that. Again, we are free to choose the issues that we deem relevant to the community. We had no position on that, up or down. It wasn't our concern whether people voted yes or no for the financing program, but our concern was that people make informed decisions. So our work for the next year may include another forum on the jail or another issue that erupts for our county that is very important for citizens to be informed about. We are also starting an observer corps, and these are people who will visit local city and county meetings to take notes, to keep us abreast of what's happening in our community at that level. And no doubt we will be assisting and or doing candidate debates as the primary draws near in November. Those are some of our goals and what we stand for as a local league. So we've talked about the who we are, and we've talked about the what we do and what we stand for. So where is a question you might think, well, is she going to tell us what their address is? That's kind of silly. It's not that. Where we are is that we have stood on the right side of history since our inception. And I'm proud of that. And if you think of history as like a big road with landmarks marking all the epic events in history as time marches forward, League of Women Voters will have put a landmark there with women's suffrage. We didn't do it alone, but we helped. It's changed the face of the world. I think the next big landmark that we may be responsible for is the Equal Rights Act. I don't know if you guys remember in the 70s there was a big push to get the Equal Rights Act written into the Constitution. And I'd like to read that for you because it's such a simple thing. The following is the entire text of the Equal Rights Amendment. Section 1, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Pretty straightforward. Not too radical. Don't know why we're in the 21st century and it still hasn't passed, but we're only one short state. And thankfully it's not Indiana. We've ratified it years ago, and Illinois just ratified the amendment last week or the week before. And so now we're just one state shy of getting women equal protection in the Constitution, 100 years almost after they got the right to vote. So you may wonder, how do we do the things that we do? And I'm going to tell you, we're just like everybody else. We sue. We use the court system. There are 2 cases in the Supreme Court right now that were brought by the National League of Women Voters and others against the states of Wisconsin and North Carolina because they have gerrymandered their states. They have drawn their political maps so unfairly that it warranted going all the way to the Supreme Court to get fixed. We are waiting on the Supreme Court's decision. There was a case from Pennsylvania that was recently tried, and the court judged favorably on the side of those petitioning the court for fairer political maps. So we feel very hopeful. Gerrymandering is part of the reason our country has become so polarized, and we hope that if we can fix the maps, we might be able to fix the dialogue too. So besides suing, we form partnerships. Right now we have a partnership with Common Cause. We call it the Indiana Alliance, and we've formed this partnership to educate the public and to educate lawmakers about the dire consequences of not fixing our political map for our democracy. It's a big issue, and I do hope you'll stay tuned, and I hope you'll research it and do your own due diligence. We're also, we have a lawsuit against the Secretary of State because she's purging our voter rolls at a pretty fast and furious pace, and they are not in complete compliance. Her methods are not in compliance with national standards. And so we're hoping to get that corrected. And I would encourage each of you in this room, especially if you've moved, to check to make sure you're still registered to vote, because there was a 17% inaccuracy rate. I can't remember which state used the method that Indiana is right now, but there was a 17% inaccuracy rate. So that means a lot of people didn't get to vote who should have been able to vote. So please check your status. It's easy to do. In fact, if anyone in this room is not registered to vote, and I doubt that's the case, but if you are not registered to vote, I can register you tonight online. It's so simple now. You just have to do it on your app, on your phone. So what else how else do we get our work accomplished? Well, we do it as we did with the jail forum. We educate, we hold debates, and we also will be registering voters, because that's the best way to ensure a vibrant democracy. Well, actually, it's not just registering them, but it's getting them to vote. It's giving them a reason to want to vote. And if we can depolarize our politics a little bit, I think it might encourage more people to come out to the polls if they think that one vote does, equal one voice, and that their voice actually will be heard. And just to emphasize the importance of one vote, there's a little story our historian in our Hancock League of Women Voters found about the 19th Amendment. It had passed most every hurdle, still needed ratification. One state was pending. Tennessee was up for the vote. It all came down to a certain man who had he was under the influence, thankfully, of his mother. This is a man who was not going to vote for the amendment. He did not see the need for women to have the right to vote. He proudly wore this red pin, which people did, like people now might wear a breast cancer awareness pin or support our troops pin. Back then, they were wearing a red pin to show that they were not in support of women's suffrage. But he gets a letter from his mom, and she says, "Oh, son, I so hope you do the right thing. I so hope you vote for women's suffrage." And on the spot, he changed his mind. He didn't tell anyone. So it was a big surprise on voting day when all of a sudden Tennessee, which was not expected to ratify, did. And all these years later, here we are. I was going to defer to Paulette, who asked me to come to this meeting, all the Q&A, because she's been at it a lot longer than me. But I will ask if there are any questions. I'd be happy to answer them if I'm able.
When and where do you meet?
Thank you for asking that. We meet quarterly in each major township or city of Hancock County. So we've been meeting in Greenfield, and then we had a couple meetings in McCordsville. We're back to Greenfield, but we'll finish the year with New Pal and with Fortville, because we want to give everybody all over the county an opportunity to come and meet us, because we generally have a meet and greet before every meeting. We just had our annual board meeting, so we're in flux right now trying to figure out exactly when those, nail those meetings down for the new board. But we'll usually post them in the paper. And the fact that you asked that question makes me think that you probably want to join. And we are open for male members. In fact, the co-president of the state league is a man. So be the first, be a trailblazer. I do have membership applications here and donor applications, and I also have business cards if you'd like to be able to contact us on your own later. Yes, Dan.
How many members do you have locally?
We have 25.
Thank you.
Yes. And we just formed last year. In fact, we just became official with recognition by this national and everything just a couple months ago. So we feel like, we're doing pretty good. If there aren't any more questions, I'll turn the mic over to Barb. Okay. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, how many